The Catholic Echo podcast is a weekly podcast discussing what's happening now in the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Bishop David Bonner and members of our diocesan community discuss your burning spiritual questions. The Catholic Echo podcast is produced by the Communications Department of the Diocese of Youngstown with support from the Annual Diocesan Appeal. It can be found on catholicecho.org, Facebook, and YouTube. Your host is Dennis Biviano.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Echo podcast. In our diocese this year, there are 3 priests who are retiring, effective July 1st. One of them, Msgr Michael Cariglio, a fixture for decades at the Basilica of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, St. Anthony Parish in Youngstown. Thanks as always for joining us today.
Thank you, Dennis. Nice to be here.
Now, let's start off first in chronological order in your younger years, where you grew up, all the way to the time where you were first called into the priesthood. I know you're a local product.
Sure. The family is a family that is from Ravenna, always Immaculate Conception School, Immaculate Conception Parish. And so I grew up my whole life being in Ravenna at the school to the 8th grade. So my whole faith formation centered around that, the family and the Church of Immaculate Conception.
How about high school and years after that?
I felt the call to the vocation to priesthood probably when I was young, about the 6th grade. You know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I expressed an interest to the vocation director of the Diocese of Youngstown, and he was Msgr Breen Malone at the time. We did not have a Catholic school in the Ravenna area. Akron was the closest one, and that was the days before the interstate. So Msgr Malone, with my parents and with my green light, of course, thought we might do better to go to the high school seminary in Cincinnati, where I was with another 40 young persons in the seminary high school at that age group, you know.
Now, your ordination, December 18th, 1970, nearly 55 years ago. What do you remember most about that day?
Well, I couldn't get over the fact that it was a beautiful blue sky, sunny day, 70 degrees, December 18th. It was kind of an extraordinary day, weather-wise, for the people of Rome. And then we had a wonderful gathering from Ravenna. About 47 relatives of mine came over for the ordination, my mother and father, brothers and family members. And there were 43 others that were also ordained with me at St. Peter Basilica. And that would be the altar underneath the Holy Spirit window. So it was a very powerful experience.
Your first assignment at St. Pat's, what do you remember most there?
After I got my degree in theology at the Gregorian University in Rome, then I returned for my first assignment, which was St. Patrick's in Kent. I did know about the assignment a couple weeks before I went back to the United States. The people that I knew in Rome were very concerned because that was the year we had those killings at the University of Kent. You know?
Oh, yes.
And I explained to them best I could that that was a separate thing from my entering into a dangerous threshold of parish life, you know. And St. Patrick's is a wonderful parish, and it's really a parish community that a newly ordained priest would relate very well to, and I did, you know.
When you studied in Rome, were you working on the language then, or was this something you learned when you were younger?
I never really studied Italian. I had a mother and a father who both spoke dialects, but they were both from different parts of Italy.
Okay.
So I was used to hearing the language in dialect. I think that did help me pick it up very quickly. But we never really communicated parents and children in the Italian language, you know.
When do you think you picked it up well and you were able to speak it well and understand it well?
Yeah, well, right away. As soon as I put my foot on the ground there as a seminarian, I became very interested in the language and desirous to pick it up. Not everybody feels that way, you know, because at that time, as students, we had to know Latin because all the classes were spoken in Latin. And then our homework was always in Latin, too.
1986, you started the Basilica of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. What can you tell me about sort of the culture, the Italian community of Youngstown and some of your fondest memories at the Basilica?
That's a good question because having been of Italian descent myself and from Ravenna, which we kept it very alive, I found Our Lady of Mount Carmel even more alive, being a bigger city and a larger Italian-American community. It's much more intense in the good sense. It was there, and people are very proud of their heritage and background and so on.
Of course, you've had the festival for years. Why do you think it's important to continue on traditions like that?
We started our festival, it's going to be in its 25th year. And we do try to keep it Italian. It's not that you go to our festival and find tacos there.
All the homemade stuff. And I can relate. We have the Mount Carmel Festival in Niles in 92nd year. And just to see all the family that don't necessarily live in Ohio anymore, that come into town. It's like a big family reunion. Does it feel like that for yours too?
Oh, yes. And it's a good support for the community. The community at large looks forward to it too, which I think is very important for a city like ours,
You recently said you announced your retirement. Do you remember when you announced that at Mass? How did the people accept that? And what will you miss most about your congregation?
Now, those are all excellent questions. I think Bishop Bonner approached me for the first time about retirement in 2024, about March. And he noted the fact that I was, at that time, going to turn 80 years old. So he noted diocesan policy and trends and so on. So that's about the right age to retire based on the needs of the diocese and so on. But he gave me a choice at that time of retiring in July of 2024 or this coming July 2025. And I chose 2025. He says, that's good. He says, it can be time to establish a line of succession, to pick the best person to succeed me. I said, okay, Bishop. And then we got more concrete about it maybe a couple months ago. And then he says, this is what's going to be July 1st, 2025. And I agreed. And then we made the announcement. I think the difficulty, if I may choose that word, is that I've been the pastor for 39 years. For 39 years is a pretty good chunk of time. So that meant that we all have to adjust, and we're doing a very nice job. And then we got the announcement that Msgr will be the new pastor rector of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. St. Anthony's has merged with us, and we're adjusting with enthusiasm, actually, I think. I get a lot of congratulations on the idea of retirement, and I accept that, and I thank them. We're going forward,
Mm-hmm. What do you look forward to most? I know you have a trip coming up this fall.
Yes, that was before retirement. We wanted to do something a little different before the announcement of retirement. We wanted to do something rather than just surface things going here and there in Italy. We wanted to do something a little more profound. So we're staying 5 days in Rome and 3 days in Assisi. And then just to know the basilicas in Rome better for the Jubilee year and other sites in Rome. And then Assisi, because it was just a fabulous part of the world, especially for reflection and prayer and enjoyable walks and so on. So we have 29 people committed to doing it that way. I'm very happy about that.
In Assisi, you'll get to see Blessed Carlo Acutis, who's going to be canonized soon.
Yes, because he's buried there. That was one of his favorite towns. He was born in England, of Italian descent, and then basically Milano was Italy, the location in Italy of the family and so on. But when he fell in love with the Eucharist and Eucharistic miracles, Assisi became the forefront in his life. So he always had his parents take him there and so on and so forth. That was his desire, to be buried there.
Now, you're also a canon lawyer. You're part of the canonization process for Mother Cassini, also Rhoda Wise as well. Will you continue to monitor those cases?
You said that very well. For the canonization of Mother Teresa Cassini, blessed now, she requires one more miracle. It has to be established. There's a couple rumors so to speak, of some miracles that people are claiming through her, but that all has to be verified.
Mm-hmm.
Then once they're verified, then you present it to the local bishop where the miracle was to have taken place. So there's one in Italy, and there's one in another part of the United States. So local bishops will have to be involved in that. And if they need my help, part-time, or, I'd be happy to help them. And then Rhoda Wise, she's a servant of God, Diocese of Youngstown, Canton, Ohio. We're seeking for the canonization process, her being lifted up or raised up to the level of venerable. So that work is done and completed, and it's in Rome, in the Congregation for Canonization of Saints. Our Bishop Otter, will hear from them. And I don't think he'll be getting any more questions because they feel questions about her. They feel the case is proper and canonically correct, and they have enough proofs. If they do, they'll write for something. And then after she is named venerable, after their time and determination to do that, we'll have a nice celebration for that status of being named venerable.
Is the best thing to do to pray for them, pray for Rhoda Wise, pray for Mother Cassini?
Yeah, pray for their canonization, yeah. And you can also pray to them to intercede for you and encourage one of your needs that you may have as a member of the faithful.
I have to ask you about Pope Leo XIV. I'm sure you were right by your TV watching as all of us when the news was announced. Just your thought on the first American Pope?
Yes, that was something, because I think I'm not the only one, but many are caught up in what was in the era that if you'd never get an American Pope, not for another 100 years, then all of a sudden we have an American Pope. And he fits the glove. The glove fits well in terms of his service to the church as a prefect for the Congregation of Bishops, so he certainly hands-on approaches the selections of the proper bishops for the various churches throughout the world, but then also his role in Peru and the active work that he did, because he's of primarily Peruvian blood, I think, born in Chicago, and educated here in the United States and so on. So Augustinian, religious, there's so many pluses about him. It just seems like he carries himself very, very naturally.
Pope Francis, did you ever get to meet him?
Well, I actually was at his audiences 2 times. The second time, I was very close to him, and I was with 2 other priests, and I will mention no names. I was enthusiastically waiting to shake his hand, and the other priest said, "We're tired, we're going to go." So I made a mistake. I went with them. I should have stayed right there.
That's
I never
funny.
got a chance. And the other time was when we had the miracle, Blessed Mother Teresa Cassini. I deferred my position, really without much discussion. They deferred it for me. That the miracle boy that had the miracle would meet
Jack
the Pope
Seabass.
rather than me, so he got the honor. And I just watched.
What do you think his legacy will be?
I think that he's a dialogue. I think he was very good at that. And one of the, how would you say, individuals of high intellectual level would say they liked him because you could talk to him.
Yes.
There was no distance that way. And I think that was very true. You could talk to him. He was very approachable,
Okay. Just a couple more questions. Is there a frequently asked question you've gotten from younger priests, or, what is your advice to young priests to help them along their spiritual journey? Example this year is Father Travis Seagraves is our only representation here in our diocese. What advice would you give to a younger priest?
I think fall in love with the people, the church, the Lord, of course, the Blessed Mother. That's the best thing. And fall in love totally,
Some things you look forward to in retirement. You mentioned traveling. Anything else? And, will you continue to teach Italian classes? Do you hope to do that?
Oh, yeah, we've already talked about that. We were thinking in terms of, I have to see what the situation's like. I'm going to be saying at the Villa Maria Teresa here in Youngstown area, Warner Road, The Oblate Sisters have a retirement home for priests. It's room for 6. I think I'll be the 5th one there. I have to check with them, but I'm thinking of doing something by semester. Disrupt the community. And I would go to Monsignor Zura and ask him if he would mind, and I'm sure he would have no problem with it.
Any other hobbies? You like to read? You garden? Anything like that?
Yeah, I do like to travel, but I can't figure out where I want to go next. So I'm going to Rome, and after that, we'll figure it out. So.
Okay. Any final words to your congregation?
Well, I think they will welcome Monsignor Zura on a red carpet, and they love their church. I think my advice to them is let's just continue to be who we are in terms of members of the church and those wonderful things that are pluses, that we're members of the Catholic Church and our blood happens to be Italian-American, and let's enjoy that and promote that. Most of all, live our faith and let it be seen in our actions.
Monsignor Michael Cariglio, it's always been a pleasure, and I appreciate it, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dennis. You too. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monsignor Cariglio. I've enjoyed our chats over the years, and may God bless you in this new chapter of your life. Coming up next, when the Catholic Echo podcast returns, my conversation with Father Stephen Wassie, also retiring this year effective July 1st. Keep it here. Much more to come after a short break. It's time for Patron Saints of the Diocese of Youngstown with your Bishop, David J. Bonner.
St. George is also known as the Great Martyr. He was born to a Christian family in the year 280 and moved to Palestine to join the army of Diocletian. He is famous for saving a girl by slaying a dragon in a lake, which some scholars believe may have been a crocodile. In the year 303, he responded to the Roman Emperor's edict of persecution against Christians by publicly proclaiming his faith. His relics can be venerated in a basilica of Lida, now called Lode. He is patron saint of England, Palestine, soldiers, scouts, archers, and is invoked for the prevention of plague, leprosy, and snake bites. He is also patron of St. George Parish in Lisbon. His feast day is April 23rd, so happy feast of St. George to our friends in Lisbon. St. George, pray for us.
Wondering what happened to timely Catholic news in the Diocese of Youngstown? It's at CatholicEcho.org. There you'll find recent stories about Catholic life in all 6 counties of the Diocese of Youngstown, plus recent videos, podcasts, and even national and global news. You'll find it all at CatholicEcho.org under the News tab. Sign up for the email newsletter while you're there to have Catholic news delivered to your inbox.
Hello and welcome back to the Catholic Echo podcast as we continue our episode on priest retirements in our diocese. I'm joined now by Father Stephen Wassie. He is retiring on July 1st after nearly 45 years in our diocese. He was most recently the pastor of 4 churches, St. George Parish in Lisbon, St. Philip Neri Parish in Dungannon, St. Agatha Mission in West Point, and St. John the Evangelist Parish in Summitville. Let's start off by telling our audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up.
I grew up in Conneaut, Ohio, the northern outpost of the diocese. Belonged to St. Mary's Parish there. I went to 8 years of the St. Mary's School, and then from there I went on to St. John High School in Ashtabula, graduated from there.
Was there someone early on that inspired you to join your calling to the priesthood?
And just the priests at the parish. I was an altar server. Got to be good friends with Father Ron Wechter and Father David Rhodes.
Take us back to December 1st, 1979, the date of your ordination. What do you remember most about that day?
I think it's just the fact that all the work I put in over the years, it was finally paying off, and I finally being able to begin my ministry.
What was your first assignment on that day, and do you remember being nervous? Did you find out that day where you were going?
I don't recall exactly when I was told. It was a temporary assignment. I was filling in as a chaplain at Northside Hospital for a couple of weeks, living at the cathedral. My assignment was going to be St. Pius X and Warren, but the priest that I was replacing did not want to leave until after Christmas, so I was helping out Northside Hospital then for those couple of weeks.
At the time of retirement, you'll have nearly 45 years in the priesthood. Is there a favorite parish you had over the years? And I guess, what are some of your fondest memories?
Enjoyed all of the parishes, even some that I wasn't too sure about. This some beforehand, but once I got it settled in, it was fine, and I really enjoyed it. But I enjoyed all the parishes. I started out as a St. Pius X. From there, I went to St. Aloysius in East Liverpool, and from there, I went to Immaculate Conception in Ravenna. For 5 years at Ravenna, I was made pastor for the first time. St. Joseph Calasanctius in Jefferson. I was there for 18 years, but I really thoroughly enjoyed all the parishes. They were all a little bit different. I found it very accepting and cooperative and everything.
What would you say was the most rewarding part of being a priest or a pastor in our diocese?
I think just the impact I was able to have on some of the people. Being with the people is a very, very important times in their life. Whether it was baptizing a new baby or burying a member of the family, experiencing the appreciation of the people that were appreciating what I was doing. My ministry really helped them through the difficult times.
What would you say is the most frequently asked question you get from younger priests? I guess your advice to them along their spiritual journey as they get started.
I just try to be supportive.
I would ask next, is there a message you'd like to share with your parishioners as you head into retirement?
Basically, I've been telling people all along that they tell me that they're going to miss me. I tell them that I'll miss all of them too, and I really mean that. I'll miss being with the people and working with the people, things like that. Each assignment I've had, I was able to grow in my ministry, and I learned a lot from people. Every parish being a little bit different, I was able to learn something different from being with that particular group of people.
And just last question, is there something you're looking forward to, some place you'd like to travel to?
Good friend, former seminary classmate, we've kept in touch over the years. He's from Evansville Diocese. He ended up leaving the priesthood, but we stayed in touch. Once I became a pastor, I didn't really have the time to do all that much traveling, so I haven't really seen him in person very much. Although we've talked on the phone and corresponded with birthday cards and things like that. But I hope to get a chance to go down there and visit him. I'm not much of a traveler. I don't have any desires to travel in Europe or anything like that.
Father Wassie, thank you so much. God bless, and have a wonderful retirement.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Father Stephen Wassie, great talking with you. God bless, and I wish you a wonderful and relaxing retirement. Keep it here. Much more to come after a short break. It's time for Patron Saints of the Diocese of Youngstown with your Bishop, David J. Bonner.
St. Catherine of Siena was a mystic born in Siena, Italy in 1347. She had frequent visions of Christ, Mary, angels, and the saints. As a teen, she entered the Third Order of St. Dominic and later started a monastery for women. She cared for the sick in hospitals and homes and buried the dead, including victims of the Black Plague. She corresponded with many leaders seeking reconciliation between warring parties, including a schism over the legitimate pope. Her letters and book, Dialogue of Divine Providence, led to her recognition as a doctor of the Church in 1970. She is a patron saint of Italy, Europe, nurses, firefighters, and is invoked against miscarriages in fire. She is also patron of St. Catherine of Siena Parish, with 2 worship sites in Boardman, Ohio. Her feast day is April 29th. So happy feast day of St. Catherine of Siena to our friends in Boardman. St. Catherine of Siena, pray for us.
Welcome back to the Catholic Echo podcast as we conclude this episode on priest retirements. Father David Merzweiler has been a longtime fixture in the communities of Lake Milton and Newton Falls. He was ordained on June 18, 1977, some 48 years ago. He spent most of his time as a priest and pastor at Our Lady of the Lakes Parish, which includes St. James Church in North Jackson, St. Catherine in Lake Milton, as well as St. Mary and Joseph Parish in Newton Falls. We thank you for your decades of service to the diocese, and God bless you in this new chapter in your life. That is all for this week's episode of the Catholic Echo podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, CatholicEcho.org, or your favorite podcasting platform. I'm your host, Dennis Biviano. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed week.
The Catholic Echo podcast is a production of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Have a blessed day, and may God be with you.